All right, I think I am live. Hello, ladies. Give me 2 seconds to just get myself organized here. And we are going to jump in. And if you are on Zoom with me, if you can just mute yourself, that would be fantastic. And that way I don't hear anything in the background. And I'm just on here, making sure that I'm live. Okay, I think we are good to go. All right, ladies. Hello. Thank you for joining me today and welcome to my brand new masterclass. So today we're going to be talking about how to lose weight at any age. And it's all about what you need to understand about hormones and metabolism in order to get it off and keep it off permanently. So that's the idea today. And I'm going to be showing you how to lose weight without starving yourself, without spending hours at the gym, without paying for expensive supplements or shakes or pills. And this is going to be for women who are either brand new to weight loss or women who have tried it all, women that are in perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause. Maybe you have thyroid issues. Maybe you're an undereater. Maybe you're an overeater. Maybe you have insulin resistance. It doesn't matter. Okay. So I do want to see you ladies do some participation today as we jump in. So I'm going to ask you all to give me a heck yeah in the comments, either in Zoom or on Facebook here. And we are going to be diving in. Whoops, I've got women trying to join the room here at the same time. All right, so let's get going here. Now, I am going to guess that for most of you, this is not your first webinar on fat loss, okay? And so if that is the case, the first thing that I want to say here is that if you have struggled in the past to lose weight, if you have failed, I want to let you know that it is not your fault, right? Like you don't lack willpower, you don't lack discipline. There's nothing wrong with you. Really, there is so much information out there. It can be extremely confusing. I hear this all the time. And unfortunately, a lot of time the information is also downright wrong. So if you've ever thought to yourself, like, is there even a point in trying again? Or is my metabolism messed up? Or am I too old to lose weight? I want you to take those thoughts and I want you to box them or shelf them for the moment, because you can lose weight. You really just need the right person to help you understand the science of weight loss, because it's so much more complicated than calories in, calories out. Despite what your doctor may have told you, because I hear this all the time where women say, my doctor just tells me to like eat less and move more, or maybe your personal trainer has told you that, or maybe your registered dietitian has told you that. So that's why we're here today. I know that if you're here, it's because you want to lose weight, you want to feel like your old self again, you want more energy, you want to feel sexy, you want to look in the mirror and be happy with what you see. And so that's what I'm going to show you how to do inside this masterclass. Okay, so really, this masterclass, I'm hoping to help two kinds of women today. So for those of you that are brand new to dieting, so maybe weight has never been a problem for you. Maybe you suddenly hit your mid-40s and suddenly you started gaining weight and you're like, okay, well, I'm eating clean. I'm not overeating. Like, what's wrong? And maybe you want to learn how to lose weight the right way so that you don't mess up your hormones, you don't mess up your metabolism, and you don't end up in the yo-yo dieting cycle that so many women are in, and a lot of you potentially right now. And it's also for women who have been dieting for the past 10, 20, 30 plus years of their life, right? And if that's you, you're going to learn why you failed so much in the past, and you're going to understand why you need a completely different approach in order to be successful, okay? What I want you to understand is that all of you have the ability to lose weight and to keep it off permanently even if you have failed over and over and over again. And this woman here that you're looking at is proof of that. So this is a woman that I worked with for about 9 months, and she came to me as a chronic dieter. She had tried everything under the sun. She was an undereater. She was, in her own words, starving herself. She lost 45 pounds using the approach that I'm going to be teaching you today, and she has kept it off. In fact, I just saw that she is now a nutrition coach herself, which is amazing because she has completely transformed her life. And I am so, so proud of her. So by the end of this masterclass, really, there's 2 goals. Number 1, I want you to understand that, yes, you need a caloric deficit in order to lose weight. Calories in, calories out still matters, okay? This is a law of weight loss, and this is true, okay? But it needs to be a sustainable caloric deficit, right? So it needs, especially if you have a lot of weight to lose, you need to create a caloric deficit that you can maintain for a long period of time. And you don't want to create, and you want to get to the point that when you reach your goal weight, you can eat and have more flexibility with your diet. And I'll talk a bit more about that in a bit here. And then the second thing that I want you to understand is that the only way that you can create a sustained caloric deficit is through a hormones first approach to fat loss, okay? If you're brand new around here, I know we've got a lot of new members. You might be wondering, like, who is Haley? Why should I trust her? So I just want to very quickly tell you a little bit about me. I won't go on for much about that, but very quickly. So I'm a board certified health and wellness coach, and I teach women over the age of 40, obviously, which is why I have this community, how to lose weight with nutrition and health style habits. And I have been coaching now for about 13 years. I used to work in person. Now I work exclusively online. I founded Project Menopause, both the website and this community that you are in. And I also created a program called not Project Menopause, Perimenopause Body Solutions. And that is a personal coaching program that teaches women how to eat and how to train to address some of the hormonal and metabolic changes that they experience in perimenopause. So at this point, I've probably personally coached about 500 women, and I've had hundreds of women go through my programs and lose weight successfully with, again, what I'm going to teach you here. Some of those women are members of this community, and some of those women literally have just used all of the different free workshops that I've provided, and they've implemented my strategies, and then they've messaged me to be like, I'm losing weight, I'm so happy. So one thing I want you to know about me, last little tidbit of information here, is that I am not a quick fix coach. So if you are looking for rapid weight loss, then this is probably not going to be the right workshop for you. Because really I'm on a mission to teach women how to lose weight in a healthy way. If you're on Zoom, can you just make sure that you're muted, ladies? Because I'm hearing some noise in the background. So I'm just going to mute those of you that have not. Thank you very much. But yeah, so that's just a little bit about me. And you might be wondering, like, have you ever struggled with your weight, Haley? And I did gain a little bit of weight when I was pregnant, but for the most part, no, I have not. But that being said, I have been working firsthand with hundreds of women that have struggled with weight loss resistance. So I understand how confusing it is, how overwhelming it is, how frustrating it is. And way back when, like about 10 years ago, it was also very frustrating for me. And so I want to share with you, because I think that it'll help you understand a little bit of where we're going today, just how I discovered what we're talking about today. So this was sort of like in my mid 30s, like about, again, 13 years ago or so. And I had just graduated from Precision Nutrition as a nutrition coach. And one of the first women who hired me was this younger woman. She was a college athlete. She was a basketball athlete. She was going hard at the gym and she couldn't lose weight. So she hired me to help her. And, I started teaching her everything that I had learned as a precision nutrition coach. And she was eating super clean, and she was definitely in a deficit, and she was not getting results. Now, this young woman had hypothyroidism, and I knew nothing about hypothyroidism. I had never even heard about it. So I started digging, and I went, down the rabbit hole that is the internet, and I found this course. Fat is not your client's fault. Okay. And so I took this course, and I had this massive aha moment, because what this man, and so his name is Brian Walsh, he's a naturopathic doctor. And what he helped me understand, that it's so much more complicated than calories. And ultimately, your physiology, right, your metabolism, your hormones determines your ability to lose weight. So you can see in this photo that all of those little words around fat loss, stress, thyroid, brain, gut, hormones, cells, insulin, toxins, right? This is all of the things that we discussed in this course. And it basically, what he was helping me understand is that if your physiology is not working properly, you will not see any weight loss. And this completely changed my approach to weight loss with women. So it wasn't so much about calories in, calories out. That's when it shifted to me, to being like, how can I fix your hormones? How's the health of your metabolism? How's your gut? How are your stress level? You know what I mean? That's when I started taking a much more holistic approach to weight loss. And so I want to give you guys your own little aha. Maybe you've already had it by just listening to that. But when women don't see results, right? When women go on a diet and it's not working, what they usually do is they start to use strategies that do more harm than good. Strategies that basically, pardon my French, fuck up your physiology more than you already have potentially now, right? And again, this is the problem. It's not your fault, because this is what the diet industry is telling you to do, right? So some of the things that a lot of women do, obviously, like eat less, move more, right? All of the programs out there are eat less, move more. 1,200 calorie diets, a lot of very extreme caloric restrictions. The ones that come to mind are like Octavia, that I'm seeing a lot right now, Dr. Bernstein, Ideal Protein, a lot of women doing OMAD, which is 1 meal a day, a lot of women like spending hours and hours at the gym. A lot of people jumping on, trying like fat loss supplements, but also going to their doctor and getting like prescription meds like phentermine and Ozempic that are helping them to suppress their appetite. And a lot of times these strategies, these things that women are doing, again, they're doing more harm than good, because you're just digging a deeper hole, right? You're just throwing your hormones even further out of whack. You're damaging your metabolism, okay? Now, the good news is, so again, the idea here, or what I want you to understand, is that if you've been struggling to lose weight, you don't want to be trying harder. You want to start trying smarter. If you fix your physiology, the weight loss will come. Now, the woman that you see on my screen, she is a really good example of this, because when I started working with her, when she came to me, she was to the point where she's like, I pretty much think that I've messed up my hormones and my metabolism. And before she came to me, she was overtraining. She was doing CrossFit. She was also chronically restricting her calories. And she had basically set her physiology up to not lose weight. And so she came to me, and we started working on her physiology, working on her hormones, working on her metabolism. She went on to lose all of the weight that she wanted, and then some. And again, there was no extremes. There was no like crazy low calorie, this or that. She didn't take any special supplements, anything. Okay. So here's what you need to understand about your hormones and about your metabolism if you want to lose weight and you want to keep it off permanently, and you want to do it at any age. Because again, I have been working with women in their 50s, their 60s, their 70s. I recently had a client who was 74 and lost 26 pounds using this approach, okay? So what you need to understand is that, again, yes, calories matter. This is still true. But what I want you to understand is that your physiology will determine your ability to create a caloric deficit, okay? Your hormones and your metabolism specifically are going to determine your ability to create a caloric deficit and maintain it. And so what I'm going to talk about today, now I don't have time to tell you everything that I have learned about hormones in the past 10 years, because we would be here for the whole weekend. And I want to try and keep this as short as possible because I know that your time is precious. And I know that for some of you, it's dinner time. But what I want to do is I want to illustrate 4 sort of main ideas that are going to illustrate this point and show you that when you start working on your physiology, specifically your hormones and your metabolism, you can set yourself up to make weight loss and specifically fat loss that much easier. Okay. So before we continue, I know I've got some of you on Zoom. I've got some of you watching me on Facebook. So hello, everybody. I would like to know right now, is this resonating? Like, is this landing for you? If it is, just put a 1 in the chat if you're on Zoom, or put a 1 in the comments if you are on Facebook here, just so that I know that you guys are following me. I see Tina, Tamara, Cami, Carrie, Candy, Raquel, I hope I'm saying that right, Francesca, Barb, Christine. I know I've got a bunch of ladies on the Zoom call as well. So hello, everybody. And let's dig in. Okay, so, and if you are new, you know that I try to keep this not too sciencey. I like to kind of break things down into very simple to understand terms. So, you know, I'm not going to go into the deep specifics here. I'm going to keep it kind of high level. I want you to get like an understanding of how your physiology impacts your ability to lose weight. And really what I'm hoping is that at the end of this presentation, you've had, you've had, whoops, I've got more women trying to get in here. You've had, like maybe a change in your mindset, and maybe again, you feel more hopeful or more inspired, ready to give it a shot again, and ready to learn how to do it the healthy way. So the first thing I want you to understand is that your metabolism is adaptive. Okay. So in the chat or in the comments on Facebook, put a me in the comments if you have experienced this. So you've gone on a diet, right? And you've lost weight at the beginning, and then suddenly you hit a plateau and it stops working. Okay. So just put a me in the comments or in the chat if that has happened to you before. And we're going to talk about what's going on there. Okay. So way back when I, this was probably about 10 years ago, and I had gone to a conference on fat loss, and it was all these experts from all over the world talking about fat loss. And one of my favorite talks was from Dr. Jade Teta. You may have heard of his name. He's quite well known in the weight loss industry. He's a personal trainer. He is a naturopathic doctor. He's created a number of different programs, including one called Metabolic Renewal. He happens to be one of my mentors. I studied with him, so he's had a lot of influence on how I coach women. And he did this presentation that was called The 5 Laws of Metabolism. And the first, then he's the one of his laws is that the metabolism is adaptive. And he gave a fantastic analogy that has stuck with me ever since. And I'm going to give it to you, and I hope that it sticks with you. And the way that he explains our metabolism is that it is just like a thermostat. So think of a thermostat in your house. So let's say it's the middle of winter and you set your thermostat to 20 degrees. If you open the windows and you let the cold air in, your thermostat clicks on, right, to turn on the heat. And let's say you then close the windows and you start a fire. Well, now your thermostat is going to click off because it's sensing that the heat is too, or that the temperature is too high, right? So your thermostat is constantly assessing the temperature, and it's either clicking on or it's clicking off, okay? Your metabolism does this exact same thing. But what it's analyzing is energy balance. So it is assessing energy coming into your body and energy going out. And your body likes something called homeostasis, or energy balance. So your body wants calories in and calories out to be equal. It doesn't want one to be higher than the other. It constantly wants it to be equal, right? So what happens is that if we start dieting, we start restricting our calories. What happens is that our thermostat, our metabolism, our inner thermostat notices this and it starts to adjust, right? And so what it does in the context of dieting is it starts to change. We start to have these hormonal changes in our body that downregulate our metabolism. So think of it as like trying to turn the temperature down, right? Or click it off. That's exactly what happens. So some of those things, I'm just going to let another lady in. So I won't go through everything that happens when our body starts to adapt. This is sometimes called metabolic compensation or adaptive thermogenesis. Oh, if you're just joining me on Zoom, if you can mute, that would be fantastic. Thank you very much. But there are all these little things that start to happen in our body, and our hormones start to shift and start to adjust and start to adapt because our hormones want to bring us back into balance. Okay. So one of the things that happen is leptin, which is one of our hormones that regulates our satiety, starts to go down. And leptin is a very special hormone because, and I'm going to do a whole workshop on leptin, but leptin is a hormone that's also very interesting because it sends messages to our brain to basically determine if we should release fat or not. Okay, it's a very interesting hormone. So that starts to go down. And at the same time, ghrelin starts to go up. Okay, so that's our hunger hormone. That's the hormone that sends a signal to our brain that makes us get up and go to the pantry and look for cookies and chips and chocolate, etc., etc. Okay. Now, if you have the willpower to ignore those hormones and you keep going with your diet, which you may give up at that point, right? Some women don't have the willpower or the discipline to just ignore those hormones. I certainly don't. But if you do push through that and you keep going in this chronic caloric restriction, another major hormone called your thyroid hormone also starts to go down. And if you've never heard of your thyroid, it regulates your metabolism. It regulates how many calories you burn on a daily basis. And this, again, this is your thermostat adjusting, right? So this is your metabolism trying to bring calories in and calories out back into balance. And so the reason that you stop losing weight is because, say at the beginning, you're burning 2,000 calories, you go on a 1,500 calorie diet, your metabolism adjusts to your 1,500 calorie diet. And then your only option is to go into a deeper deficit. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Just remember, your metabolism is adaptive. Now, when you understand that, when you understand how your physiology works, the beautiful thing is you can start to hack your physiology. And I'm not going to give you a step-by-step here. I'm just going to give you like a very quick idea of one of the tools that I use, which is called non-linear dieting. And this is the idea that instead of going into a caloric restriction day after day after day after day after day, we go caloric restriction, maintenance, caloric restriction, high calorie, caloric restriction, maintenance. So it's kind of like I'm opening the windows, I'm turning on the fire. I'm opening the windows, I'm turning on the fire. And the metabolism, the thermostat, is constantly adjusting. And this just slows down the process of metabolic compensation or metabolic adaptation. Okay. If you're just joining me on Zoom, if you can just mute yourself, that would be fantastic. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to move on to our second point, or our second illustration here of how this works. And we're going to talk about the metabolism and how the metabolism is flexible or inflexible. So again, quick question for you. I want to know how many of the women in here, maybe you have to eat every 2 to 3 hours. Maybe if you skip a meal, you get hangry, right? Hungry and angry, hangry, or you get shaky, or you get irritable, you struggle with hypoglycemia. That was me in my 30s, okay? So in my 30s, and just to be clear, I was a personal trainer, I was a huge fan of Toscarino. I was eating clean. I was, working out at the gym. That was my life. I was in health and wellness back then, but I struggled with hypoglycemia all the time. And I remember one time specifically, I was on a hike with my sister and I had this like drop in energy, this hypoglycemia. And I was like, I had to sit down and I was like, give me my lunch. And I was literally like just shoveling food in my mouth as fast as I can. And I didn't understand back then what was happening. And this was a regular occurrence. This happened all the time. Okay. So what was happening there is that I lacked metabolic flexibility. So I want to, again, give you an analogy or a story to help you understand what it is. Because again, if I can give you like pictures that you can remember, you will, like, way more than the science, you'll remember this. Okay. So here's my little analogy for you today. Hopefully it's just as good as the thermostat. I kind of came up with this one, so I hope it's as good as Dr. JT does. But the idea is this. Let's say you get a job at a grocery store and you get a job as a cashier. And so you are, running stuff through the till, you know that the code for eggplant is 6237, and you take your bananas and your apples and you're super speedy, you're super good. And then you get a promotion and you get moved to the deli. And now you've been working at the deli for like a year and you're really good at the deli. You do that job like super, super well. But there's a crisis and your boss comes to you. He's like, hey, can you hop back on the cash? Because Bob's sick and I can't find anyone. So you're like, yeah, sure. So you hop back on the cash. You can do it, but you are way less efficient. You can't remember the codes anymore. You don't know how to refund something that you maybe checked twice, and you're just not as fast. You're just not as efficient. That is metabolic inflexibility, and that's what happens inside your body. So let me help you explain what this means inside your body and how it relates to your ability to lose weight. So when you eat food, protein, carbs, fat, right? They get digested into your body and they get broken down into glycogen for carbs, into amino acids for protein, and into triglycerides for fat. Now your body can take carbs, glycogen, and fat, triglycerides, pull them into your cells, and through a very complicated process called the Krebs cycle, turn that food into something called ATP, which is energy for your body. Okay, it can do it with both of those things. Now, think of like a young child, or maybe you're a teenager. They can eat pretty much anything and get away with it, right? Like my daughter, she certainly eats food that if I ate the way she ate, I'd probably gain weight. And teenagers the same, right? I look at like my niece and nephew, and again, they can kind of get away with anything. What happens is that as we get older, we become more and more metabolically inflexible, okay? Which means that we don't have the capacity to burn carbs and fat as well as we used to. And in the standard Canadian diet and the standard American diet, we tend to prioritize carbohydrates, which means we are very efficient at burning carbohydrates. Our body is very efficient at doing that. In fact, our body prefers to burn carbohydrates. But if we never train our body to burn fat, it forgets how to do it, or it becomes less efficient. And you can see how this would be very problematic if your goal is fat loss. Because ultimately, for fat loss to happen, you've got to pull fat out of your cells, or out of your fat cells, into your bloodstream, into your cells, through the Krebs cycle, into ATP, and then you've got to burn it. That's how you burn fat. But if your body kind of prefers to use carbs and it can't really use fat, that's going to be a problem. So another thing that you can do for your physiology is you can train it to be more metabolically flexible. You want to have a flexible metabolism, a metabolism that can handle carbs, a metabolism that can handle fat, a metabolism that can handle fasting, where you're just not eating anything, and it can go and pull energy from your fat cells, from your liver, from your muscle, wherever it needs to go. That is a flexible metabolism. And that is one of the key things that you need to lose weight, okay? Now, again, We're not going to go into a step-by-step, but I am going to share my favorite tool for improving flexibility or metabolic flexibility. As you may know, I'm a big fan of low carb. I truly believe that all women would do well going on a low carb approach, potentially even a ketogenic approach, even for a short period of time, just to train their bodies into burning fat. Because when you deplete your diet of carbohydrates or you reduce it, your body has no other choice but to figure out how to burn fat and how to become more efficient. You want your body to be good as a cashier and good at the deli. Okay. All right. I hope that's landing. I hope that was a good analogy. We're going to move on to our fourth example here. So we're cruising right along. So the next one I want to talk about is how our hormones impact how much we eat. And I think this is really important here because, and I read this recently in a book, but basically it's like, again, calories matter, right? We need to be in a deficit, in a caloric deficit. So eating less calories than we burn in order to lose weight. But ultimately, our hormones are going to dictate our ability to stay in a caloric deficit. Because if you have been on a diet, you know how hard it gets, right? You know how hard it gets when you've been restricting your calories for like a week or two, and then suddenly it's like, oh my God, I'm hungry, and that burger looks good, and those chips look good. So you need to understand that your cravings and your hunger, they're literally driven by your hormones, right? And your body does not like to be in a caloric deficit, which is what I was explaining earlier. It likes homeostasis. It likes when calories in and calories out are in balance. So when you go on a diet, your metabolism, your hormones, they fight back, right? It's kind of like a boomerang, right? So you throw the boomerang and it swings around and it comes right back at you. Okay. This is sort of like how I want you to imagine your diet versus your hormones. Okay. So it's like the harder you diet, the more you restrict, the more you train, the more your hormones are going to be like doing everything in their capacity to send signals to you to make you eat more food and spend more time on the couch. That's just the way it is. So what does this mean for you? This one's short. We're going to kind of move on quickly here. But what this means for you is that you need to learn how to manage your hunger and how you can start to, again, hack these hormones and play around with these hormones. And there are certain things that you can do to have control so that you can increase leptin, right, the satiety hormone, and decrease ghrelin, which is the hunger hormone. That's what we want to do, is we want to start thinking about, well, what can we do with our nutrition to play around with those hormones, to impact those hormones so that I can stay in a deficit, but not have to deal with my hormones pushing against me. And again, this is just going to make it so much easier for you to stay on track so that you're not white knuckling your way through the day. You're not thinking about the donuts. You're not using your willpower, because ultimately that's what it boils down to. So my favorite tool here is really it's macros. That's what it boils down to. I'm a huge fan of macros. I often say to women at this time in our life, and when we're dieting, really, for all women, for all men and women, but I think especially in perimenopause and menopause, just eating clean isn't enough anymore. It isn't enough anymore, especially if you're in a deficit. But when you start to tweak your macros, when you start to like understand how different foods impact your hormones, then you can start to have more control over your hunger, your cravings, your willpower, your discipline, all of these things. So when it comes to macros, my sort of like favorite trifecta that I want to see in as many meals as possible is I want a ton of protein, I want a ton of fiber, I want some fat, but I also want a lot of liquid. Okay. So the protein and the fiber, the reasons that I like protein and fiber so much is because they are going to slow down the digestion of your food. And the slower you digest food, the longer you will go before you see a rise in ghrelin that sends you to the kitchen, the one that drives hunger. So lots of protein, lots of fiber. Then we can control ghrelin, right? Now, leptin, which is our satiety hormone, there are different sort of triggers in the body that trigger leptin. My favorite is just expansion of the stomach. So when you expand your stomach, just that action of expansion triggers the hormones and the neurotransmitters that send the signal to your brain to tell you that you are full and that you are satisfied. And how can we fill our belly without necessarily drinking or eating a ton of calories? Liquid in the form of like non-caloric liquid, aka water, and protein and fiber. Protein and fiber and veggies, which is fiber, right? So low carb veggies, because they're going to be lower in calories, but they're going to take up a lot of room, especially vegetables. I was just talking to one of my clients about this the other day. She's like, well, what do I do if I'm hungry? And I'm like, put more veggies in your meal, because it takes up a lot of room. It's going to expand your belly. It's going to give you more fiber. And this is going to help you to increase leptin and decrease ghrelin. So that's just one little tool for you today, because I do want to give you some tools. But just for you to understand, the basic here is that if you can control your hunger, if you can control those hormones, your ability to stay in a caloric deficit is going to go up. Okay. And that's ultimately what it boils down to. All right. Last one, ladies. Okay. So the last one I want to talk about is just this idea that, again, going back to how our physiology impacts our ability to lose weight. And what I want you to understand is, I'm just going to give a very simple example here, but I want you to understand that your hormones impact, the food that you eat impacts your hormones, and your hormones impact what you do with said food. Okay. It kind of works in a bit of a circle there. But when I'm talking to women in Messenger, a lot of women will tell me like, I just look at a cookie and I gain weight, right? And the fact of the matter is, there's some truth to that. There is some truth to that. We all have our own unique tolerance, especially for carbohydrates. And a lot of this is going to kind of boil down to our hormones. So I was working with a woman. This is a little story that I'm going to give you the story, and then I'll explain what's happening here, right? So I was working with a woman last year, and she was definitely being consistent, right? So she was getting out for her walks. She was following my meal plans. She was in a caloric deficit, and she wasn't losing weight. And what was happening is she had something called hyperinsulinemia. Okay, so her insulin levels were chronically high, chronically elevated. Now, insulin is, I don't know if you've ever heard of the term insulin, but this is a hormone that mainly goes up when we're eating carbohydrates, but we can also get to a place where it's just chronically elevated. And what happens is that when insulin is in our body, when insulin is upregulated, when it goes up, it basically sends a message to the body to store energy. Okay, that's what insulin does. It says to the body, suck up all of the sugar in the bloodstream and let's just deal with it, because you can't have too much sugar in your bloodstream at one time. It's toxic. So the moment insulin is released, it's trying to pull that sugar out of your bloodstream. If you just joined me on Zoom, can you press mute, please? Thank you very much. And so what happens is that some of that sugar is going to go into your cells and you're going to turn it into energy, but anything in excess is going to get stored in your fat cells and potentially in your liver, maybe in your muscles, but it's going to kind of go all over the place. But the point here is that if you constantly have high insulin levels, you're constantly telling the body to store energy, store energy, store energy. It's never going to release energy if insulin is always high. Why would it release more energy when your body is sending a signal that there's too much energy to be had, right? So managing insulin becomes super, super key. And one thing you need to understand about your metabolism is that it is a terrible multitasker. It cannot store energy and burn energy at the same time. It just doesn't do it. It's either storing or it's burning. It's one or the other. Okay. So this is where it gets cool though. Okay. So you can influence your hormones, right? So you can influence your hormones. We have two, like when it comes to sort of storing and burning, we have two sort of main types. We have anabolic hormones and catabolic hormones. So anabolic hormones, they're the hormones that tell your body to build muscle, and they're the hormones that tell your body to store energy for later. Okay. And your catabolic hormones, those are hormones that tell your body to break down muscle, which you don't want. And they're the ones that tell your body to release energy into the bloodstream so that it can get turned into ATP. Okay. So obviously when we're trying to lose weight, we want the body to release energy, and we don't want the body to store energy. Ultimately, we want to upregulate hormones that build muscle. Okay. Because more muscle equals a faster metabolism. An example of that would be testosterone. We also want to downregulate or lower hormones that build up fat in our cells, right? Like whether it's in our liver or in our fat cells, anything that tells our body to store fat, we don't want that. Insulin is like the major one there. We also want to downregulate, or we want to lower hormones that break down the muscle, because if we're losing muscle mass, we're slowing down our metabolism. That's not a good thing, right? A major player there is cortisol, to give you an example. And we want to upregulate or increase the hormones that encourage our body to release stored energy and use it. And then one there would be glucagon, okay? We won't go into specifics. I just want you to get the basic idea here is that, you know, there are certain hormones that are going to tell your body to store energy. Certain hormones are going to tell your body to release energy and burn energy. We want to upregulate some of them. We want to downregulate some of them. And the way that we eat and our lifestyle habits all have an impact on these hormones. We won't go into all of it. I'm going to give you one quick tool though, my favorite tool. So like I said, insulin is like, if there's one hormone that you're going to like target, the first one, I would make it insulin, because it has a huge impact on your weight. You want to manage it. You want to lower it. You want to keep it in very specific levels. The best way to do that is to eat more glycemically balanced meals. So we don't want to be eating sugar and carbs, like big bowls of pasta and processed foods and stuff like that. You know this already, but just go online, Google low glycemic foods, and just doing that, incorporating more of those foods into your nutrition, you are going to start to manage that hormone and start to shift those hormones. But it's really cool because this just shows you sort of the power here of you have a lot of control over your hormones. You cannot control all of your hormones, right? So for instance, like estrogen, like we're all going through menopause here. Estrogen is going to tank. It just is. You cannot boost it back up the way it ever was before, unless you go on hormone replacement therapy, or unless you take potentially some natural supplements that are going to assist in elevating a little bit estrogen. I'm playing with one right now. I'll keep you posted. But just so you understand, right? Like with estrogen, unless you're willing to take hormone replacement therapy, you have a little bit of play, but not that much. But insulin, you have so much control over that hormone, right? You have a lot of control over testosterone, human growth hormone, all these different hormones that have an impact. And ultimately, this is what I want you to focus on, because if you start to like stop worrying so much about the calories, even though they're important, and shift your focus to your physiology, right? Shift your focus to making sure that your hormones are working properly, your metabolism is working properly, your gut is working properly, everything is working properly. And I tell you that each and every one of you can lose weight. What I talked about today is, we want to optimize metabolic speed, right? You don't want to slow metabolism. That's pretty obvious. You want to optimize metabolic flexibility. You want to make sure that your body can burn carbs it can burn sugar, and it can also go and find energy in your fat cells and turn it into energy, like release it and turn it into energy, right? So making sure it can burn fat is going to be super, super key. You want to make sure that you understand how you can manage your hunger hormones so that you are less sort of like, you're not hungry all the time. You don't have cravings. You're not relying on willpower. You have the ability to stay on track. You have more control over your actions and your behaviors when it comes to weight loss. You want to upregulate those fat burning hormones. You want to downregulate those fat storing hormones. And I forgot to put it here, but you really want to protect that muscle mass as well. This is how we start to work with our physiology in order to facilitate fat loss. Okay. All right. If you're just joining me on Zoom, if you can just mute yourself, that would be wonderful. I would really appreciate that. So that's sort of like the end of what I wanted to share with you guys today. So, really that's the key, is you just want to start working on your physiology, right? You want to start making your body work for you. You want your hormones to work for you. You want your metabolism to work for you. So I would love to know, how many of you feel excited from what we just discussed here? Did you get a mindset shift? Are you feeling hopeful that even if you're in menopause, or even if you've been dieting in the past, or even if you're 70 years old, or even if you feel like you've tried it all, that maybe if you shift your attention to your physiology, that you can still lose weight? So hopefully that's resonated. Feeling hopeful, says Barb. Awesome. And Marlena, hopeful. Yay! Good job, ladies. Now, I also recognize that a lot of you probably feel a little bit overwhelmed because we have covered a lot. And, like I said, it's impossible for me to teach you everything that I can in a workshop, because it took me 10 years to learn all of this. It takes me 6 months to coach my clients through this. But there are different ways that I can help. So I would love to take the next 10 minutes, if you don't mind, to just share how I can help. So obviously, this community is here to help. I've had women in this community watching these workshops for like years now. And like I said at the beginning, I've had women who watch these workshops and implement the information. And then they send me messages and they're like, Haley, I'm losing weight. I'm so happy. And you can absolutely do that. That is definitely an option. But I do have other options as well. So if you are interested, like I said, I do have a program. It's called Perimenopause Body Solutions. It is a 6-month program. It is personal coaching, and it's literally a hormones first approach to fat loss. So I will teach you exactly how to work with your physiology, how to optimize your physiology, how to diet smarter, not harder, how to balance your hormones, how to optimize your metabolism, how to create that sustainable caloric deficit for 6 months without feeling deprived, without feeling hungry, without feeling cranky or moody, right? That's the idea here. So what we do in this program is we start off with something called the Happy Hormones Reset. And the Happy Hormones Reset essentially is it's a very specific diet. I think of it as metabolic rehab, and it's designed to give you more metabolic flexibility. It's designed to make sure your metabolism is up to speed. We go straight into working on insulin and some of the other hormones that are going to impact. We start working on hunger management. Then, if you can just mute if you're on Zoom, please. From there, we do a deep dive into macros. That is like a crucial component of the program. You will understand how to build meals that, once again, are going to balance your hormones and help you manage your hunger. You will get meal plans, you will get recipes, you will get it all. You will also, once we've gone through that, then we're going to work on more advanced strategies like intermittent fasting, carb cycling, something called intermittent energy restriction, which is that nonlinear dieting that I talked about at the very beginning. And I walk you through this all myself. We do Zoom calls. I take you through it all. And one thing that is in this program that I didn't really talk about today is mindset, because for a lot of you watching right now, you're probably thinking, okay, this is all really cool, but I have such a hard time sticking to it. And mindset is a whole other piece of the puzzle that we didn't cover today, but really mindset is at the base of it all, because if you don't have the right mindset, you're not going to implement any of the information anyways. So mindset is a crucial piece there. So I would highly recommend that you check it out. These are some of my clients. This just shows you, this is just a couple of women like through the 21-day Happy Hormones Reset. So in our first month together, you can see less inflammation, less bloat, some weight loss. Like for a lot of women, just the Happy Hormones Reset is a game changer. This is another client of mine, post-menopause, for the post-menopause ladies out there. And look at how fantastic she looks. She looks amazing. So again, I just want to show you like how it works, who this is for. Honestly, I have worked with so many different women, perimenopause, menopause, post-menopause, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, women with hypothyroidism, adrenal fatigue, insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, metabolic syndrome, PCOS, autoimmune conditions, women that, again, they've never really struggled with their weight and suddenly they're like, what is happening? What do I do? Women that have tried everything to the moon and back, women who have 10 or 20 pounds to lose, women who have 50 to 100 pounds to lose. I have used this approach with all of these different women. So if you want to learn more, go to this website. So projectmenopause.ca/details, or just put details in the comments and I'll send you the link. That's not a problem. And then from there, the next step is just to book a strategy session with me. It's free. And all we're going to do is we're going to talk about like what's going on, because ultimately the first step is I have to make sure that I want to like learn a little bit about you and make sure that this program is a good fit. And if I think it's a good fit, then we can talk a little bit more about sort of like what we would do from there. Okay. So that's number one. Now, if this is not quite, if you're just like, oh, I don't know, hold tight. I have something coming down the pipeline that will allow you to dip your toes a little bit and maybe test the waters. Okay. I don't have it ready quite just yet, but it's coming. But for those of you who are ready, again, just feel free. The strategy session, it's not a pressure call. I'm not a salesperson. I'm really just here to help. And if you think that we'd be a good fit, and I think you'd be a good fit, then I would be happy to work with you. So I hope that was helpful, ladies. Does anyone have any questions? I've got 8 minutes. If you have questions, I've got about 8 minutes before I have to go and pick up my daughter. And then I see here, is lifting weights at the gym counterproductive when trying to lose fat? No, I love lifting weights. So that's a great question. So you may have noticed, and I was going to talk about it today, but the presentation was going to be about 2 hours and I really had to try to make it a bit shorter. But I asked in the group, do you think cardio is the best form of exercise for women that want to lose weight? And women were like, yes, no. I got all kinds of answers. So let me give you my thoughts on that. So I think that for most women, cardio is not the best idea, and I much prefer to see them lift weights. Now, there's a couple of reasons, and now that you've heard my presentation, all of this will make way more sense. So when it comes to lifting weights, number one is it's going to help you build more muscle. That is going to give you more metabolic speed. We want as much muscle as we possibly can get, especially now in perimenopause, menopause, because we are all subject to sarcopenia or age-related muscle mass loss unless we do something about it, okay? So that's one of the reasons I like weights. The other reason that I prefer weights over cardio goes back to hunger management. So there was this really cool study done in Calgary, actually, on women post-menopause, on the effects of cardio they were running on weight loss. And I could go into the whole thing, but I'll keep it short. What they found is that for 75% of women, they would either not lose anything or gain weight. And what happens, and what they think was happening, is that basically cardio drives hunger way more than weight training. And so these women were overeating and overcompensating. They weren't managing their hunger. So I much more prefer, and what I do with my clients is I like walking And I like either traditional strength training, if you have the time for it, or short, sort of more intense, I call them metabolic chains. So they're short, they're intense. We're building muscle, but we're also triggering human growth hormone, which is key to fat loss. Okay, so hopefully that answers that one. Okay, I will make sure that I get the link to you, Trisha and Lori. And then let me just go see over here and see if there's any questions. It looks like there's no questions. If you guys, like, if you ladies come up with questions, some of you have been chatting with me in the DMs, you know I'm an open book. I will happily chat with you guys. I love talking about this stuff. Like, this stuff, like, just lights me up. I really enjoy talking about this. So I'm just going to jot down. So Lori B needs the link. Trisha Pope, I will get that to you, my dear. I know we've been talking a few times. Is HRT safe and worthwhile? That's another great question. So Lori, I am of the opinion that, so when it comes to HRT, okay, I need to do a whole presentation on HRT, but super quickly, what I have learned, and a book, I don't know if I have it here right now, but the way that I think of it is that all of these sex hormones, right? So estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, DHEA, they serve a purpose in our body. And it's about way more than our menstrual cycle, okay? So estrogen, for example, estrogen protects us from heart disease. It protects us from osteoporosis, and it protects us from type 2 diabetes. Okay, those are three major things there. Very, very important. The moment we lose estrogen, we become more prone to those three diseases. Okay, look at what happens to women post-menopause. Heart attacks, heart disease, #1 killer of women. A lot of women get osteoporosis, and a lot of women develop type 2 diabetes and insulin resistance post-menopause because they don't have as much estrogen. So the way I see it, and what I am hearing more and more in the sort of women's health expert field, is that for most women, HRT is likely a good thing and safe. Not every woman, and this is why it's super important to find a doctor that you can talk to, but I would recommend finding someone who knows what they're talking about, because I've had also horror stories in the DMs talking with women of women where they go to their doctor and their doctor just prescribes them, like, you know, testosterone pellets and this, that, and the other, and they're not testing their hormones. And now their hormones get out of whack in the other direction. And when it comes to your hormones, it's like the Goldilocks principle, not too much, not too little, but just right. And that's kind of the way you want it with hormone replacement therapy. So personally, I can tell you that for myself, I'm 48. I just had 5 months without a period. That's the first time it ever happened. I am booking an appointment with my naturopath. What I do know is that if you are going to do hormone replacement therapy, it's ideal to start it before menopause as opposed to after, but you can still start it after in certain conditions. But I do certainly think that there are some benefits to taking them. So I don't know if that explains it. I would love to do, like, again, I'd love to do like a little bit of a chat or a presentation, maybe bring in a woman, an expert in that field that can talk to us more about bioidentical hormones and biological doses, and who is it safe for, and is it true that it causes, and all these things. You know, we have these massive scares about hormone replacement therapy that I'm not totally sure that they're all valid. So, okay, there we go. All right, let's see if there's anything else. Okay, I think I've got all of your questions answered. So, and I'll just check the chat one more time here and make sure we're good to go. All right, ladies, it is 5:58. We kept it to an hour. I want to thank you so much for sticking with me to the very end. I truly appreciate that. And I hope that you learned a lot. And thank you so much for being here. Have a wonderful evening. And I will see you all again soon. The next topic, we're going to be diving into human growth hormone and how to boost your metabolism. So make sure you stay tuned, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.